Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Next to the Floor. My name is Harrison. I am your host with the most. I have got my giant bag of Sour Patch Kids, which I've just dug into, and I am joined, speaking of Sour Patch Kids, by the ever sour and oh so sweet Bjorn Anselm. Choo, choo, choo. Hello.
What an intro.
I saw the segue and was like, let me dive straight into it. We're going to lean into
Take your
it.
shot, man.
You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Was
Gotta
that
be in
Wayne
it to win it.
Gretzky? Who said that?
I think he started it, and it's community now.
Okay. A lot of people have said it. Michael
Right?
Scott said it at one point, I'm sure. So, hello. Welcome
Hey,
back. How have you been?
I've been pretty good. I haven't seen you in a bit. It's been like a few hours.
I know. It's so funny because I think about that every time we start one of these episodes. I ask you, how have you been?
Right.
Knowing full well that I literally just saw you.
Well, normally it's the day before, so.
Yeah, that's true. So for our viewers at home who, well, Bjorn kind of gave away our secret. We were going to try to keep this one a secret, but this episode, wouldn't you know it, is pre-recorded. We're actually filming this on Saturday night because we are having a virtual holiday party tomorrow with the staff
Yay.
at our studio. So we were like, you know what? Let's keep things consistent with the stream. And
I got my Christmas
you've
yet
got
Boston Celtics.
what it says, slam dunk.
Swag, slam dunk. It has
I've
lights,
got.
but it might give you a seizure, so I'm just gonna spare
Oh
you.
yeah, well, avoid that. There's a lot of that going around lately. Mine's very confrontational. Mine says "bite me."
I like it.
And oh snap.
It's a lot of things. It's like sensitive but aggressive.
It also says spaceman. I think
Wow.
space miss.
There's a lot going on there.
That yeah, well, as most ugly sweaters are wont, there's a lot going on. Let's what are we talking about today? Oh, fun fact, since we are a podcast all about dancing in the dance world or whatever.
Else, right?
or
Everything else.
Yeah. Recent article read the other day that says that breakdancing is officially coming to the 2024 Paris Olympics.
Yeah, man.
Which is really exciting.
It is. It's breathtaking, because breakdancing as a culture is not that old. It's like 40 or 50 years old. And yeah, it's getting recognized by an official sporting industry. So it's a super huge deal.
That is really interesting. What because breakdancing came about in what, the late 70s, early 80s, or is it earlier than that?
I use the term culture specifically and loosely at the same time. Hip hop is a genre that spawned, as the story's told, in New York,
right?
The boroughs of New York. Represent. The story will probably skew from person to person, but as most things do, there, as they say, is nothing new under the sun. I'm sure that you can find lots of these moves in gymnastics, in other forms of dance. I've seen black and white videos where these moves happen. So, they weren't like invented in the 70s in New York, but this is when this thing called hip hop starts to kind of get that seed planted and explodes and then takes over the 80s and beyond from there.
Right. And so obviously like hip hop as a style of really like hip hop as a culture, not even just like as a style of dance or in a style of music, but it's has always kind of largely been a Black focused experience.
Yeah, Black, Spanish.
So it makes me think that there's obviously, like as you're saying, that it wasn't just something that was like created overnight by people. It's been kind of like an amalgam of all sorts of other things. Like I know there's a lot of particular like think about what style is it, like boogaloo, electric boogaloo. I love boogaloo. It's so fun. But there's a lot of like Charleston.
Exactly. And there was a time that dance was called the Steve Martin in the 80s. So
no kidding. Like
and that was in the 80s.
After Steve Martin, like
the
actor?
The guy the very one.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know specifically, but in that time, the 80s is when rap music is becoming very aggressive in the industry. The artists are like, we're here, aggressive. we're gonna make a name for ourselves.
Right. Aggressive as in prominent.
Aggressive as in basically forcing prominence. Also, almost like stealing respect. Like you're gonna respect me. There's no other way about it. That sort of mentality.
Gotcha.
And then, this is like the slums, quote unquote, of New York. A lot of these people come from places where there's not a lot of resource, a lot of money, etc. When you look at, we're talking about breakdancing, most rap music you're ever going to hear comes from some sample of some song that's from the 70s or the 60s or something. So, the culture of hip hop comes from poor people that are like, hey, we don't have anything else to do, so we're going to grab this, we're going to borrow it, we're going to chop it up, we're going to mix it up a different way and present it to you in a way you've never seen before. So it's like, here's Steve Martin, there was a dance called the Pee Wee Herman, the Cabbage Patch, etc. So it's just their way of being creative back then, I think.
That makes me think of I don't know if you ever saw, sorry, I need to put these Sour Patch Kids away. This is super rude.
I mean, who doesn't like Sour Patch Kids?
They make me think of you. At first I see you and I'm like, ugh, sour, gross. And then I'm like, all right. Pretty cool.
Right.
But I don't know if you ever saw on Comedy Central, they have had a series for a while called Drunk History.
Oh, classic. Epic.
And there's an episode about the creation of the song Rapper's Delight.
Is this with Questlove?
I think it's Rapper's
Questlove.
I think so. Yeah.
I feel like it was.
I think it's Questlove and like Retta.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And she like in order to the Sugar, and it's by the Sugar Hill Gang, and like the creation of the song was basically like Sylvia Robinson sampled, and didn't even sample. It wasn't even a sample at that time. It was just like she took the music from like some other song and was like, here, rap over top of this. And there was a huge big legal thing behind it over like intellectual property and blah blah blah, and she ended up winning the case. And so it's interesting, like hip hop as a culture grew from an environment of poverty,
but
like,
I mean, Not to cut you off, but in context of all else we've spoken of on the previous episodes, it comes from people that were brought here, enslaved, and given nothing. And then they were like, well, we're going to
Right.
make something out of that.
Well, and that's always kind of been the the ethos and spirit of Black people, like I say, like Black with a capital B, like Black people and Black culture, right? Is
Right.
that our greatest assets and our greatest what are the word contributions to society have always been created out of our own personal struggle.
Right.
And our like, you look at really quite literally anything created by Black people is a product of some form of oppression. Hip hop is, largely has to do, like, became a huge thing towards the end of the 70s, when like policing started to become much more prominent in the inner cities. You have like the burgeoning of like Negro spirituals at the end of slavery and the beginning of Jim Crow, right? Like and that's and all of, especially from like an artistic perspective, a lot of what you look at, like ballroom dancing, break dancing, all of these things that are involved in the arts are formed from, the minds and cultures of Black people, and they like still persist to this day, which is such a fascinating thing about the resiliency of the Black spirit and Black culture. Again, man. Black being kind of like the collective Black experience, which, we all experience very differently. I wanted to ask you, as someone who has experience in the worldwide world of breaking and breakdancing and like competitive breakdancing, what has been your experience with, I guess I don't want to use the word like gentrification, but I'm gonna use it, like gentrification, or like or like co-opting of breakdancing.
I was like, where are you going with this?
Well, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
I do. I was gonna leave it alone, I was like, what's he gonna say? But I will umbrella where I think you're going with the term pop culture, right? So pop culture is, to me, the today's semblance of like aristocratic society, where they're the rich people and they're like ha ha ha, ta ta ta, whatever, and these are people that they're like
just like that,
just like that, like word for word. They're, we're the rich people, we're better than everybody, we do the things that are the best things that happen, right? But these people basically sit around and be rich. They don't know anything. Their money comes off of the hard work of others, right? So, and then it's passed down generation to generation or whatever. So what ends up happening is a lot of these people, even lots of musicians that, they're famous for whatever reason, they normally end up finding some muse who's some struggling person somewhere, because their life is plain and boring and has, it's been handed to them. It's like entitlement. So there's no real struggle, like you were saying, and through the struggle builds character. To me, this is what makes you who you are. If you think of a diamond, right, you come from compression, right? So just think of like life in that context, the people that are like crushed down, those are normally the ones that spawn the greatest character, the greatest thoughts, because they have no other choice. And that is like word for word what hip hop stands for. And breakdancing is in that same context. For people that maybe, haven't heard it before, traditionally hip hop is thought of as being a culture driven by DJs, on turntables, as like the gatekeepers, and through this they basically create parties, but areas where people want to come to. And then you have to have a voice. So that becomes the MC, master of ceremony, or the microphone checker, the rapper, right? So you have your DJ, your rapper, then your entertainment becomes either that in some combination or dancing. So then breakdancing comes in, and then you have graffiti writers, because they're the ones that put the not commercials, my words are advertisements up in that sense, be it their name, their crew's name, some guy who's important for whatever reason, and things like that. So, if you think of what graffiti is, for example, it's people finding some place to put this thing that you're going to have to look at. Back in the 90s, I remember the big boom boxes. Do you remember those?
Oh my God, yes. Hello.
So just think of what that is. It's a person being like, you're all going to hear this right now.
You're all going to hear this.
And I mean, like, people do that today. Chris was telling me the story about, a guy that was doing it on the train, and how obnoxious it was. And I'm like, that's super annoying, especially first thing in the morning. You're
right.
Trying to get to work and somebody's blasting music. But now is different. Back in the 80s, this was still a culture that was pinned down. Nobody was listening to young Black voices. Right. Nobody cared. Martin Luther King did his thing in his youth, and look, no offense, look how that turned out.
Right.
We can talk about he's as great can be, but they shot this man and nobody did anything about it. Like,
still got shot. Yeah.
So ultimately, hip hop was like the trump card for the oppressed to be like, right. All right, we give up on everything else. You're gonna hear us now, be it through music, right, or voice, or seeing the names on the buildings or whatever. So right. It's wrong, but it's right.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. It's not. But that's always been kind of the viewpoint of art in any way, shape, and form, right? That
right.
That art as an idea and as a concept is meant to, in some sense, is meant to cause discomfort, and it is meant to cause and stir conversation. And it's not necessarily like your Monet, Manet hanging in a gallery, right? It's other things like, somebody carrying and I mean, like, I guess the zeitgeist or the cultural norms at the time, and also like the technology that's available. But like, it's somebody walking down the street with a boombox on their shoulder playing, F the Police by NWA, right? Like,
literally,
it's, I mean, granted, in the year 2020, absolutely, it's annoying to have, somebody blasting music at, I don't know, any hour of the day on the train, because we have like the ability to have, I mean, like, headphones existed back in the 80s too, but like, everything comes standard with headphones now. So like, just wear your headphones. But that's where I'm like, you can just wear your headphones. But I think there's something in there that, like, as a form of art that was created out of the depths of oppression is also largely a form of art that is built around resistance, right? And straying away from the, I guess, the cultural norm or what is expected of people, which is what makes hip hop as a culture and idea so like enticing yet also so taboo.
Right.
Which is fun.
Yeah. And so, circling back, for me growing up, that the taboo was what drew me to the culture. Well, when we started high school, a friend of mine named Timmy moved to Florida, and when we were
about
freshmen,
Florida, just so you know.
Got it. So as sophomores, he came back from down south, we'll say, and he all of a sudden he could flip around the place and stuff. It was crazy. And Timmy was not the athletic guy, so we were like, "What?" And he taught all of us how to break dance, so we've been dancing ever since.
That's awesome.
Well, break dancing at least. So, luckily for me, I had good friends in my life. At the time, Timmy was humble enough to share that with all of us. And from there, seeing how it was rejected by society made me want to do it. That was the thing that was like,
right.
Oh, you're gonna tell me what to do and what not to do? Cool, awesome, great. This is gonna be my thing to build character.
Right. To rebel, fight the man.
To rebel, and we did.
And we all had those things as kids, though, too, right? That like one thing that's like, I hate you, Mom. I'm going to do this anyway.
Right. I'll show you.
We were all angsty, but that's good that it was like dancing. That was your thing. Right. There are so many other terrible things in the world, and I feel like hip hop and just dancing in general as a thing to like use to rebel against the man is so like so innocent.
It's so innocent, and then it's like something as innocent as that still was being blackballed and
right.
Illegal. Have you ever seen the movie Beach Street?
I've not.
So Beach Street's an 80s movie about like breakdancing exploding through culture. And literally at a point in the movie, these kids get arrested for breakdancing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, actually, so that idea actually, that is not like new information to me, or at least like I knew not necessarily that it was illegal, but that like I've definitely seen like movies or TV shows or like scenarios where, people are out on the corner or whatever with like their cardboard box, like on the street as their dance floor. And it's like the group of people and they're all playing music or whatever. And they're all dancing or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like the cop drives by, they like scatter.
Right. And it's like, don't dance.
And that always, right. I'm like, okay, what sort of footloose world are we living in at the moment? Right. So I never actually knew that it was like, I guess, an illegal thing to do, but I think that ties back into largely like society's views in general of like Black people and Black culture.
Yeah. I mean, totally.
And right. And in some senses, like Black culture has always been off limits, even to Black people.
Right. Right. It creates that competition. And then, circling back to your original question that you asked like 2 hours ago, when you think about like the gentrification sort of angle, it's that is the part where you look at talking about, here's on one side where it's like, don't do this, we'll arrest you, we'll harass your whole life forever.
Right.
And then, oh yeah, my kid's gonna do that with you too now. And it's
Right.
like,
It's
okay, cool.
it's
Like, come on,
yeah,
you know, like what? It's just
it's
interesting.
yeah, it's that that idea of like it's like policing black people and black body, black culture to police it, and then when it becomes like popular amongst white people, that it's suddenly okay.
Yeah, you have to accept
Um,
it.
or and it's not even to use like kind of the opposite of that. There's like the image that always comes to my mind is like the current like opium epidemic,
Hmm.
or in like the drug epidemic that's like sweeping white America at the moment. Like that was largely an issue within the black community. It still is a large issue within the black community. An issue that was started largely by, the CIA and FBI and the war on drugs funneling crack cocaine into the inner city, and
Yeah.
there's a whole nother thing there. But it was never really like a problem or America's problem until it started affecting the white community.
Hmm.
Similarly, like black things like hip hop and I'm gonna like hip hop as an idea, hip hop and like rap as a genre of music was never really a popular or I guess inspired genre until you had white people enter into the industry like Eminem, who, for what it's worth, is, and this might be an unpopular opinion, I don't care. When he came out, like after Slim Shady, like around his 8 Mile era, was one of the best rappers in the game.
Yeah,
Um,
easily.
right? So you have like rappers like Eminem, then you have Macklemore, Iggy Azalea, who just kind of like sweep in and ride the coattails of all of these incredibly talented black artists.
Hmm.
And then suddenly rap is cool.
Right. Because, like, and I'll say this too, I don't think that, like, Eminem comes in under Dr. Dre, right?
Right,
And his moniker is like, I'll talk trash about everybody.
right.
I doubt if he did that without Dr. Dre that would have
It
been
would never have
allowed.
happened. Yeah.
Somebody would have killed him or
So
something.
he would have been dead like in a hot second. But for what it's worth, I think what Eminem did very well, and I think a lot of people need to realize this, and this I could speak this towards like the ballroom community and the dance community as a whole, is that Eminem did I think a really great job of like being respectful of the environment that he was in.
Hmm. And he's
Right.
like super hip hop, like super
Right.
duper.
100%. Like, I think there wasn't a moment during his career where he disparaged the black community and disparaged the hip hop community. If anything, he like spoke for, that didn't necessarily speak for them, but like paid homage to all of the like very important black creators that came before him that allowed him to basically enter the game.
Mhm.
I forget, I think it was on VH1. There was a kind of like a behind the music sort of thing on Eminem. And they
Yeah.
had, I forget who the names were. I think Dr. Dre for sure was interviewed. I think like Ice Cube or Ice T,
Mm. I think I
whichever
saw
one.
that. I did
And
see
there were a
that.
couple of other big names in the
Yeah,
business who like, you know what I'm talking about? Who like
I
they
saw that.
interviewed
Yeah.
them about like their opinions on Eminem, and they were like, normally like as a genre, it is very much like gate kept by black people because this is like this is ours. This is something that we can honestly like hold on to and say this belongs to us.
100%.
Um, and they all like speak incredibly highly of Eminem and like his ability to like be such an incredible lyricist, but then also to be able to like speak positive, like to pay homage to the entire community
Yeah.
and like respect
Uphold the
my
culture.
game, right?
Yeah, totally.
Which is something that can, I think, and the reason why I asked that question before is because I feel like, at least in my experience with hip hop as a style of dance, not necessarily breaking, but hip hop as a style of dance, which is
In general,
largely
yeah.
like has always been kind of, well, originally was a black medium and a black form of expression, has, even when I was like dancing hip hop back in the 90s, was very whitewashed.
Mm.
Um, and I say this now even more too, like looking at the ballroom community, that like all of these dances, and I've said this many times before, on all of our previous roundtables and podcasts and things along those lines, that, I think other styles of dance that have been, and other forms of art that have been created by Black people, or really any like minority in general, has been kind of co-opted in a way that doesn't pay homage or give respect to the people that created it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a community, like a dance community, we don't do enough to do the research to figure out where these things come from,
Right.
and like the cultural importance of dances, cultural importance of dances like the mambo, cultural importance of dances like the Argentine tango, like
Yeah.
these dances that are by and large not European.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where that question came from. So,
Well, it's funny in our Arthur Murray syllabus. It says how tango comes from the Caribbean, and I've literally heard nobody ever say that, ever, not one
yep.
time ever. But
Well, because it's largely based off of dances like Posada. I mean, like pretty much any dance that requires you to be here.
Yeah, you can see it, right?
It's like that is Afro-Caribbean, any which way you try to slice it.
And I mean, that's the greatest music that's ever been invented ever. So, I mean, come on.
Hello. I mean,
there's
no arguing. There's literally no arguing.
When you hear it, right.
When you hear it, I will say, I don't want to say I've strayed far from the church in my 30 some odd years, but I will say that the Roman Catholic Church, for everything that they stole, did a really great job with like choral music and like hymnals. That stuff is haunting. Anywho, I think that was one of the only reasons why I enjoyed going. Actually, really, the only reason why I enjoyed going to church was A, being in the chorus, and B, singing like hymnals, because they were just like so beautiful.
I love music, man.
Not to segue again,
right?
But I'm going to, because it's our damn show, and we can do whatever we want.
That's right.
Wanted to first and foremost give a huge shout out to last episode's #NotSponsored winner. Last episode we were not sponsored by Melanin Apparel, and our winner of our #NotSponsored giveaway was Isabel.
Hey,
Isabel. Yay! Congratulations, Isabel. I'll hit you up later. Winning stuff. You are going to win probably that Nina Simone Mood t-shirt. So I will reach out to you and get you a thing. So The next situation, no. This week's hashtag not sponsored, not sponsor, is Zach and Zoe Sweet Bee Farms.
Hey.
Because we love them here at Next to the Floor.
Yeah.
We are doing another hashtag not sponsored giveaway with them. So in order to win, in order to enter, you have to, leave a like and a comment down below, right down here. And you'll be entered to win. It's just that easy. There is actually another way to enter into this contest.
Hey.
Turns out. So I mentioned this not last episode, but I think maybe last episode or the episode before. But we have started up this really cool thing called a Patreon. Yeah, I know. How exciting. So Patreon, basically, it's a way for you viewers at home or anybody involved to help support us here at Next to the Floor, help support the stream, help support like all of the nonsense that goes into it. There are a couple of different tiers of support that you can provide. It's all there on the website. It's patreon.com/next to the floor. The link for that is again down below in the description for this video. So make sure you check that out and donate, help us out, help us run things around these parts. And really quickly, want to send a huge thank you to our current Patreon and our Patreons. That's the pink graphic. Thanks to our Patreon. There you go. Get it? Thanks a bunch.
I was reading this chat like, what is going on?
So thank you to our Patreons. Obviously, our first Patreon is my mom, so don't say anything. She just loves me so much. So thanks, Mom. If you can't listen, said it last time. If you can't get your parents to support, your endeavors, who's going to support you? Got to start small. Got to start local. So I think that's all of the announcements.
Cool.
We're not sponsored this week by Zach and Zoe Sweet Bee Farms. We have a Patreon, so check out our link to our Patreon below. Become a Patreon. We'll give you a shout out. There are other things that are involved with that too. One of the levels of support, I think it's our silver level sponsor or whatever. We're doing like a monthly AMA sort of deal. This is all news to you, Bjorn. So
I know, I'm like, fantastic.
Like a monthly AMA where we'll actually answer your questions on the stream. What is the other one? One of them, I think it's the highest level one. You get 2 extra entries into the not sponsored giveaway, which is awesome.
Nice.
More opportunity to win free things.
Yeah, we got stuff.
So there's stuff there. So totally check it out. It's really exciting. I'm super excited for this next kind of endeavor. Again, also, we're on all sorts of social media. We've got a Twitch channel. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got we've got Facebook.
Facebook.
That was the other thing. We're probably I like this whole pre-recording thing. We might do some more pre-recorded stuff. If you're a Patreon subscriber, or if you support us if you're a Patreon supporter, Patreon, I guess that's the word, you'll be able to get early access to all of our videos and content, which is cool. So that probably means that our viewing schedule is going to be changing coming up. So stay tuned for details on that. But yeah, that's the skinny,
nice.
The scoop, the situation there. So what were we talking about? We were talking about hip hop and dance and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. Breakdancing is in the Olympics.
Breakdancing is in the Olympics, which is really quite something. So
yeah,
it's not called breakdancing in the Olympics. It is just called, just so we know, just so everybody knows. It is called, hold on, I've got it here pulled up on my phone. I think they're just calling it breaking.
Yeah.
Which sounds like what I would do if I tried.
Yeah, man.
I remember you tried to teach us how to do like that whirligig situation. And
we did some footwork.
Damn near killed myself.
And that's the funny thing, because in the studio, people are always like, "Teach us," and I'm like, "Let's
not."
Yeah. I'm like, let's work on balance first, and then
let's figure out how to walk in a straight line, maybe.
Right.
Only maybe.
The last thing we need is injured students.
Oh my God. Let's talk about that. I like, our students think I'm joking when, I say, when I'm like thoroughly impressed and like excited when they do something like, oh, you guys did a rubber box. This is so exciting.
Yeah.
Or you turn it. They're like, oh, you're just, like, this must be so easy for you. And I'm like, y'all don't understand. Like, I've spent entire lessons, 40-minute lessons, just showing somebody how to walk in a line because we couldn't make it happen. It's painful.
Well, sometimes it's like 2 lessons.
Oh, listen, those double lessons, just trying to learn how to walk. Hey,
Yeah.
Did you know that ballroom dancing was an Olympic sport?
I did. And I think that's amazing. It should be.
I think, it was, it wasn't for a long time. It only happened like once or twice.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it from different sides, because I know that, obviously there are different companies that, had a foundation as ballroom. The word escaping me, but like different circuits or whatever.
Right.
So I'm sure everybody doesn't have the same sort of complete rule system and things like that. So same thing with breakdancing. I'm like, I'm just interested to see how it all turns out.
But yeah, that was my first kind of thought behind the whole entire situation, was trying to figure out, okay, how are they going to, what's the rubric by which they're judging things by?
Right.
And that's, why I know for something like ballroom dancing and dance sport, why that is very unlikely to become an Olympic sport again, and why it was kind of like taken out of the whole entire, like, the Olympic Games back in the late 80s, early 90s, is because, like, I mean, we say it on our own lessons with people, like, you're going to hear about 7,000 different explanations on how to do one thing.
Right.
There's no, and it's largely because these things are all cultural. Right. They're all different cultural dances and cultural things. There's like agreed upon.
Right. And I'm like, if this was put into my hands, be it ballroom dancing, break dancing, I'm like, people are going to have different opinions regardless. Some people are going to say, I love this. Some people are going to say, I hate it. And the Olympics is a measure of speed, a measure of strength, a measure of synchronization, and all of these things. So I would say that it maybe should not be an avenue for exhibiting, quote unquote, the best dancing, but people maybe using dance moves to exhibit different things, like how fast they can move from one place to another. Or,
well, I think that was that was largely the reason why it was approved to begin with. So they had originally done a trial, like a test run of it at the 2018 Youth Olympics. And the basis by which they were judging everything wasn't on like danceability. Like that had a small part. It's kind of like, like figure skating.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Like floor routines in gymnastics, like they're given like points for specific like technical things, and then like the level of difficulty for different movement. Because I mean, like for what it's worth, like in breakdancing, there's an infinite number of ways you can move your body. That's the cool thing. But there are certain moves, and I mean, I'm not a breakdancer, so I can't speak to the validity of this. I know you can, but I've seen enough to know that there are like certain moves that just kind of like exist. You've got the little like whirlwindy situation on your head. You've got the like little pommel horse sort of thing with the legs.
That's literally what it is.
You've got all of your like freezes and things along those lines. So I'm assuming they'll like, give each of those a difficulty, and then you can earn like with the difficulty, you earn points based on like the finesse of it or whatever. And then there will be like a small category that adds like style points.
Yeah. And I mean that in breakdance, that's where some people are going to say this is harder than this. That's where a lot of the conflict, I think, will happen. But, again, it's like, what are you going to do? I think this should just be looked at as, obviously it's experimental, but highlighting of a portion of hip hop dance culture. But this is by no means like the best break dancers go to the Olympics. It's it's more, it's a circuit within the breakdancing world.
I think it kind of begs the question of how do you add like tangibility to something that is largely about like self-expression.
Yeah.
Like, unlike, it's not like you're trying to throw a shot put the farthest. Like that, like outcome, right? You put 10 people in a line, give them all a shot put, and you tell them throw it. There's very easy to see what the clear result is.
Right. So let's take sports, for example, right?
Like sports as an idea. Sports
as a fandom. So there's this guy is the best athlete there ever was, right?
Right.
Whatever
Also
sport, whatever it is.
The GOAT.
The GOAT, the greatest of all time, right? Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, LeBron James, whoever, Wayne Gretzky, whatever, right? And then people are like, well, they won this many championships and blah, blah, blah. And none of these men plays an individual sport. They all come from a team.
Right.
So if you don't know the specific statistics of the entire team and everything that happened, you just highlighting how many times they won something is not really tangibly dissectable, I guess, mentally, because you're missing 90% of the information that you need to make that make sense. Now, if we took all of these guys, stood them up side by side and was like, okay, you shoot basketballs, let's see who could hit the most backward shots. Let's see who can... These are ways that you can take all of these guys and actually just judge their individual ability side by side. But we ignore that. And now when you take these Olympic things, the same exact thing is going to happen, in my opinion.
See, that would be something I would sign on to watch that, Like,
yes, absolutely. I'm like, we find out so much.
Whoever can take this basketball and score the most shots by throwing it behind their head in the next 5 minutes
you
guys have,
know,
you get
eyes
medal.
closed from the side, all this
Yeah,
type of stuff under the
you
leg,
know,
whatever.
yeah,
And almost like in basketball, you have horse. It's
uh,
like, I'm going to do
yes.
this shot. Can you do it? That
Can
sort
you
of
do
thing.
it? I mean,
Instead of
why
like,
why
okay,
we don't have
you,
Olympic horse? Um,
right. Because then you get to sports and it's like, there's this team and this team. This team has 20 of the best people there ever was. My team has me and this one other guy that's kind of good, and everybody else is like
it was
super
like,
terrible. And then they're like, oh, that guy's the best ever. And I'm like, all of your teammates are just as good as you. Like, what do you
right.
expect me to really accomplish over here?
Yeah, it's
It's
all right.
logical, but
It's
it's, you know,
but
common sense is uncommon.
right. It brings up that like it's all completely relative, and that's why I
Right.
don't think like ballroom dancing is never going to. I as much as I think it would be cool to be an Olympic sport because for what is it like we've competed and it's a lot
Mhm.
of work. Like
Right.
it's a sport. It's
Oh,
a blood
man.
sport. Like I bled on the dance
I just,
floor.
I tasted it. I didn't even really get in there. So my hat off to you guys, man. You guys go in.
Oh my god. But yeah, but I know for like a fact that it could never really work as an Olympic thing, because nobody can agree on anything
Right.
as far as like what they're looking for. Like I've done
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of coachings with like various coaches and have been told in one example, like one instance to, put my arm here and be super sharp with it. And another example,
Mhm.
they're like, okay, but instead of like, it's too sharp, it's too hard, it doesn't match the music, blah, blah, blah. But then told by another judge, oh, do this. So,
Right.
nobody can agree on anything.
This sounds
If
like
we're trying to like, right, it's like if you're trying to go who's the best in the world, right? There are
you're
like
never gonna know.
there are 10 couples who consistently win competitions every single year.
Yeah.
And who wins what competition depends on who's there.
I mean,
So
think
it's
about it, right? Because I teach a dance called the rock dance. It's basically like the parent of breakdancing for a
right.
short definition. And literally, I've said this. I've ignored competitions for the same reason. I'm like, whoever's judging it is going to pick the people that dance the way they teach.
They
Like,
do. Yep.
it's every industry of dance, and
Yep.
this is one of
Or,
the reasons I started teaching is
yep.
because I want to undo that. I think it's silly.
Yeah. And it's silly, and I think it forces, I don't know, for me, like it just makes the whole experience not enjoyable because then I find
Yes,
that people are constantly trying to like appease, and that's
right.
where this is a whole nother subject and we won't go there because
A
we're
whole
not going to
nother
go there. But then
show.
it starts, oh my gosh, it starts getting like ballroom dancing at this stage in the game, like it has largely become political, in not in the sense of like there are tons of Trump supporters in the ballroom world and they can all go
Sure,
take a long walk off a short pier, um
with no rope.
but but and then while they're there practice breathing, um, um but it's political in the sense that like people quite literally like at after there's you go to the competition or whatever and you dance, and then there's always an after party for the professionals. And I think
Right,
a lot of the competitors will go out of their way to like spend extra time with various judges and people who
right.
are like making the calls in order to
Of
like appear
course.
better, to make friends, or to like to better their opportunities or their
Right.
yeah, to better their opportunity to win.
Look, the
uh,
judges are human, right? They're not robots.
right.
They're humans too.
And so it's I mean, in some sense, like I get it, you know, for a lot of professional dancers, and a lot of professional dancers, I mean, like, for a lot of professional competitors, like, competition is their source of income. So if they're not doing well, they're not making any money. Just as like a shout out for everyone, like, being a competitive ballroom dancer is not a lucrative experience. All of the money that you're winning in competitions getting funneled right back into travel expenses, hotels, food, coaching, things along those lines. So I don't know.
Massages.
Oh my God. If that. But, you know, like, if we can get the politics out of it, then I think we'd be in a much healthier place. But I'm going to segue here really quick because we're running out of time. Speaking of politics, I just wanted to say that congratulations to Joe Biden for winning the presidency now. I think
Joe.
I think we're up to like number 15 at this point.
How many times he's won?
How many times he's won. So I think we're at the 15th time.
Yeah.
But with that, we are at the end of our first pre-recorded episode of Next to the Floor. As ever, Bjorn, thank you so much for being here, sharing your experience, everything.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. You truly are the world's best Sour Patch Kid.
I was like, it's gonna come.
You know.
I'll take that. I'll accept that.
Yeah, so to wrap things up, make sure you leave a like and a comment below to be entered into our Next to the Floor #NotSponsored giveaway. This week is Zach and Zoe's Sweet Bee Farms.
You're gonna love it.
You're gonna love it. I've been using their raspberry honey. It's wild, wicked
crazy.
Good. Make sure you watch some old episodes.
Yeah.
Get in on it. And make sure you go to our Patreon at patreon.com/next to the floor. Support the stream. Huge shout out to our first ever Patreon, Julie, my mom. Hi, Mom. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And did I forget anything? Oh, congratulations to Isabel for winning our last
Isabel
thing. And our next episode is our Christmas episode, holiday episode. Happy Hanukkah, everyone. I think tonight's the second night of Hanukkah. I think so.
Yes.
I believe so. I think yesterday was the first one. But with that, everyone have a blessed weekend, blessed evening, night, day, afternoon, wherever you are. Remember, it is completely free to be a good person. It costs you $0 to open a door and say thank you. And remember, don't argue with fools, because from a distance, you don't know
who's who.
So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful whatever.
Peace.